Welcome to SBW Talks. On today's episode, we have Manju Kalidindi, the founder and attorney at the law office of Manju Kalidindi, PA, in Plantation, Florida, specializing in employment-based and family-based immigration law. She's a founding member and current director of South Asian Bar Association of Florida. Ms. Kalidindi has been recognized twice by the Supreme Court of Florida for exceptional pro bono service, named Broward Lawyers Care Attorney of the Month multiple times, and received the Community Leader Award from Desh Videsh Media Group in 2015. She is a member of the Florida Bar, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, the ILA, South Florida chapter, and the South Asian Bar Association. Welcome, Manju. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on, Nila. I look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, we're so excited. I know you've been in the business for a long time, and I'm sure you've met a lot of people. So over the years of the practice, what has stood out to you the most?
Something unrelated to my practice of law, which is immigration law. I've often heard from women, because this is a women's show about women, about their spouses dying, and they have no access to the bank account. They're not beneficiaries because for whatever reason, there was no joint bank account. So what happens when the spouse suddenly dies? Because death is not predictable, right? It can happen anytime. What happens? The wife, remaining spouse, cannot get access to the funds for a funeral, for medical expenses. So oftentimes she has to borrow from people. So I've been telling my clients, man, woman, please have a joint bank account. That's the first and foremost thing. And also have your documents in order, like estate planning documents.
Okay, and why do you think we as women, we kind of forget to put our names on bank accounts and we just take it for granted?
We assume the man is going to take care of everything. There are men who take care of everything, but we also need to get involved in the process, especially if we have small children as well. We need to look out for ourselves and for the minors as well,
Right. And I feel like when an incident happens, that's when we are like, oh my God, we're not even on this beneficiary or on an account, something.
Exactly. And when it happens, it's a bit too late. So please keep this in mind for whoever may be listening. This is of utmost importance. Take part, get involved in your lives.
Right.
You don't have to do the banking, but at least have your account, joint bank account. You can have your independent separate account, but also a joint bank account between the spouses.
What other things should we be thinking of? I mean, bank account is one for sure.
Have a will. In addition to a will, disclaimer, I'm not an estate planning attorney, but this is what I've seen over the years. So have a will. In addition to a will, probably a trust, whether it's revocable or irrevocable. That is a discussion you should be having with your estate planning attorney. A living will, which is when you're incapacitated, let's say you're in a vegetative state, or you're unable to make decisions for yourself. How do you want your life or the remainder? Do you want to be kept on life support? Do you want food to be withdrawn, water? These are decisions that you cannot make when you're incapacitated. So that's a living will. And then have a healthcare surrogate as well, who can make those decisions for you when you're unable to do so.
And what is a healthcare surrogate you just said?
Healthcare surrogate.
Yeah, what
Choose
is that?
somebody who can make the decisions for you. Let's say you're incapacitated. How do the medical personnel know what your wishes are, right? So those are specified in the living will, like do not resuscitate, take me off like a ventilator, if that's what's keeping me alive. If you're not able to do that, there is a living will. If there is no living will, who is going to make those decisions for you?
And then is this something that we need both a will and a trust?
Some people do have those, do both, because I think a trust is probably more protective of your assets.
And then I know we had talked about even going into probate. I know a lot of people don't understand what probate means. What is probate?
Probate is two ways. Let's say, going back to the bank account. There's a bank account, the husband's name is on it, he dies. What happens? Well, you have to go through probate, meaning it's a court-supervised legal process on how to manage the deceased person's assets and how to distribute them. This could take some time. In the meantime, there could be hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting somewhere, and you have no access as a surviving spouse. Do you want to wait for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, however long the probate process can take to get access to that money?
And I think a lot of people don't understand this is also very expensive when we have to take on that responsibility of hiring a lawyer, going through probate.
Exactly. A probate, you do have to go through probate whether you have a will or you do not have a will. Having a will makes it easier to go through probate. If you don't have a will, then probate could be a little more complicated, I would think.
And then say you don't have a will and something happens to your spouse. So then what happens to the money, like the house, the assets?
That's where you go through the probate without a will, intestacy state laws, because each state has its own laws on what procedures to go through when there is no will.
And what happens to the children that are minors? That's another.
Well, the spouse is the parent, right? So I don't know if there will be guardianship issues. I doubt it, because these are two parents of the children. It's not a step-parent. There are other issues that I have no answers to. Like I said, this is not my area of expertise, but these are issues that I've seen over the years. So now I try to make it a point of telling my clients, okay, you're here on a H-1B, you're on a green card, whatever you're on, please make sure you have a will, you have a trust. If your children are minor, let's say both spouses die, what happens to the children? They're minors. Do you have somebody who is appointed as a guardian in your will? So these are all questions that you should think about and really have a serious conversation.
Right. And what are some other things like will, trust, bank? What are other things that we sometimes forget that we should also be put on?
Well, if you have investments, make sure you have beneficiaries for everything. You have life insurance beneficiary, 401k beneficiary. And even children, I'm jumping ahead. I think a lot of people probably have children going off to college, right? People are graduating, children are graduating, they're going off to school. Most people, when they start college, they're 18 years old. So something that you need to keep in mind is when a child turns 18, the parents really have no access to their health records because of HIPAA. I've heard of stories where a child gets into an accident, gets into a hospital, the parents are there, but because of HIPAA, they can't have access to the medical records. So you need to get, before the child starts college, have the HIPAA authorization, maybe a living will for the child, power of attorney for the child. These are all things that you need to think about. I think we put it off, thinking we could get to it, but before we get to it, life has gotten to us, and we're in a situation where, like, oh my God, as you said earlier, why did I not do this before?
Right. And then this all, like the HIPAA, all of this would be in the living will, correct?
No, HIPAA authorization will be different for the child.
Okay. And how
living
do you
will, living will is separate. These are all separate documents, healthcare advanced directives, like the living will, healthcare surrogate. Those documents have to do with what happens if you become incapacitated.
Okay.
Living will, yeah.
So there's like different aspects, like of different documents that women need to figure out and sign.
Parents, yeah. Not only women, but parents need to think of this. If you don't have a will, what's stopping you? It's not about, I've spoken to people and they tell me, well, I'm not going anywhere. Well, if we knew exactly what date we're going to die, is that going to make us think about this? Or they don't want to talk about it because it's bringing about thoughts about mortality and they don't want to deal with it. But It's better to plan ahead so you don't leave a mess when you pass on, to go through this, court orders, legal process of probate that could take time. Why don't you make things easier for the remaining people in your life?
Right. No, these are all good points. What other things have you seen or you think we should know about?
I think these are the most pressing ones that I've seen related to, I could talk to you about immigration, but that's not what we're doing right now.
No.
These are the big things that I've been seeing more recently. And I used to discuss these things with my clients, but after seeing these issues come up over and over again, it's like, why are not people thinking of these things? Why is only one person's name on the bank account? Why is the spouse not having access to it? What makes us, I don't know what the thinking is.
Right. I don't think any of us do, but I think we kind of take it for granted that, oh, life will happen, and you get so busy with everything. Another thing I've seen is women don't drive. A lot of women don't drive, and I know if an emergency happens,
Exactly. What happens? You have a minor child. Let's say you have a minor child at home. Something happens to your spouse. We're talking about women, right? So let's say the husband has a heart attack, and you could call 911, but that could, who knows how long that might take, hopefully within a few minutes, but within those few minutes, a life could be lost.
Right.
What if there's another emergency, not just life, but something happens at home and there's no one to take you to the hospital?
Right.
Won't it be, become a little more independent, I guess, rely on yourself. It's great to have friends and spouses, but we also need to be self-reliant.
Absolutely. And I also feel like I know a lot of women, I know back in the day we used to write a lot of checks. A lot of women still don't know how to do an electronic payment. And I feel that's so necessary. These are your financial needs.
Exactly. We're in a great age of technology with so many apps that we can download instantly to our phone. You scan a check and deposit it, right? You have Zelle, you have Venmo. So things have never been more convenient than our parents' time.
Right.
So why not make use of them? Why not make your life simpler?
And I agree. And I mean, you don't know when your spouse they might be hospitalized, something happens, and then you're all alone and your kids are not there. I think as women, we need to be independent in everything we do. We have to know the knowledge and understand, what may happen, and we just have to act on it.
We can't just say, hey, I have a great neighbor that would take me somewhere. I have great friends. That may all be true. But there could be one moment in your life and none of those people are available. Then
Right.
What happens? I think something that has stayed with me is something that my dad had said a long time ago. He said, no matter what you do, married, great marriage, whatever, he said women need to be financially, economically independent because
Right.
you never know. You never know. Life is not a guarantee.
And
And when something happens, you can't learn right then. This is a process, a lifelong process, right?
No, that's great advice. I think we need to be financially independent, know where our finances are, and if something happens to our spouse, be it men or women, we need to be ready for it. I know it's mortality, but we just have to be ready for it.
It's like on the job. You can't, let's say somebody dies, then you're like, oh my God, how do I do this? How do I do the banking? That's not the time to learn. Make
No.
it consistent so you know exactly what needs to be done when
Right.
that time does come. And it will come, right?
And then say something happens in life, you're with your spouse. And again, as we were discussing one time, having a joint account and having also independent accounts.
Exactly, yes.
That's also very
I think
necessary.
what the takeaway I can give is to people who don't have any of these documents, please go see an estate planning attorney, somebody who is in finances, so you could at least start the process now and get all those documents in order. And your mind will be at peace
Right.
because you've taken care of all this.
No, this is great advice, Manju. Thank you again for coming. Again, where are you based? Give everyone if they need your help.
Well, not with estate planning, immigration. I'm based in Plantation, which is a suburb of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and that's in Broward County.
Okay, great. No, thank you, Manju. We're so happy to have you. It was great. You gave good advice because I think these are the topics that we don't talk about on a daily basis.
And these are important topics, too. So thank you for bringing this to life, Nila, and giving me some time to talk about it.
Yes,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you to our viewers at SBW Talks. Please remember to follow, share, and subscribe. Thank you again.